Yeah, we're not doctors or giving any medical advice. This show is intended for educational purposes only, and you should talk to your doctor about any medical issues. Now, let's get at it.
Welcome to Chat the Fat, where nutrition authors Nissa Gron and TC Hale are going to break down common low-carb mistakes. Let's chat all things low-carb, keto, digestion, and more so you can maximize your results.
Are you ready to learn the secrets Keto Decoded member Donna used to lose 2 full pant sizes in only 3 weeks? Stay tuned to this episode of Chat the Fat because we're breaking down all of the big victories Donna has had since learning how to keto the right way for her big results. So after a few weeks of being back on the show, TC has eluded us again. But that's okay because today I'm talking to 2-time keto challenger Donna about the amazing success she's had since starting as a Keto Decoded member. Donna is a 48-year-old nurse who resides in South Carolina with her husband and 2 girls. She began following keto on her own in January of 2019. While she did have some initial success, it was slow going and she continued to struggle with common digestive issues. After struggling to lose her first 20 pounds, Donna decided keto was just like all of the other diets she's tried in the past that wouldn't work for her. She eventually regained everything she lost, but she decided she wasn't ready to give up on her health, so Donna continued to research all of her health diagnoses, which included prediabetes, hyperthyroidism, fatty liver, hyperlipidemia, high blood pressure, and irritable bowel syndrome. In her research, she came across TC's book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, and finally found many of the answers she'd been searching for. Even though she works in the medical industry, she finally realized the doctors were only masking her symptoms, so she began following the protocols in the book to learn how to quit covering up the symptoms with medications and how to get to the root of what caused her health symptoms, and she's had pretty amazing success. So welcome, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. I am excited you are here. We have you've had a lot of success over the past few months, so we will get to all that. But I wanted to start out with, there's a lot of women who struggle for years, sometimes even decades, with their weight loss. So how far back does your story go?
I can remember in high school, instead of eating my lunch, going to the track and walking around. So that's 30 something plus years. So yeah, decades.
Wow. Sounds like instead of eating your lunch, you were doing a fasted walk and you didn't even know it.
That's right.
No, I love my fasted walks if you're doing it with all the right methods. But what methods did you start trying all the way back then?
Well, I really didn't try to diet. I just tried to cut back portions back then. But through college, I've done everything from there was even a soup diet I tried once, and of course, when Atkins came along, I tried that, and low carb. There was a company near me also, that a private company, I can't remember their name, that they had counseling, they had supplements, they had a lot of the right ideas, but they and frozen meals and treats and stuff, but it was 30 miles away and it was difficult to get to. They really didn't have like a support group and things like you guys. So again, something else that just failed. So many things I've tried, nothing has ever stuck.
So since you've been dieting since high school, that's a good 30 years for almost 22. So since you've been doing that, has it been constant or have you taken breaks on and off?
Oh yeah, no, it was definitely not constant. It was just, I don't know. I get frustrated and say, forget it. It's the way God made me. I'm just going to be this way. Heavy parents and ancestors. This is just my lot in life. So yeah. Until I started getting diagnoses, and I have young children, 8 and 10. I got a long way to go to get them grown. I said, I've got to do something, or they're not going to have anybody to raise them.
Okay. And then you had mentioned that you had tried Atkins in the past before trying keto back in January of 2019. How many times did you try Atkins or other low carb approaches?
Atkins probably twice, but then low carb pretty much for, I don't even know. My mom has diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and she'd been following a low carb, and I try to kind of do what her doctor was telling her to do. But the cravings, wake up in the middle of the night with just craving to eat. And I'd eaten normal meals and done everything they said. And it's just something I couldn't maintain. So I know at least a couple of rounds of each.
Yeah, I think cravings is a pretty common symptom for a lot of people. I know when I did low carbs, cravings always hit after like that first week, and sometimes I'd make it through it, but a lot of times it was just too strong to overcome, and then I'd end up cheating, and we all know you can't really cheat on keto or low carb.
Yeah, you got to be in or out, one or the other.
And I'm glad you understand that, because there's a lot of people that don't. They think they can do it during the week and then cheat on the weekends, and then they wonder why they're not getting results.
Right. Well, and the support group helps that, because other people that, there's people that have been doing this for a while in this group, and then there's, newer people, and they're the ones who say, okay, if you can maintain, a couple of weeks, these cravings left me, and this happened, but then it went away. Because that's the thing, you get in the middle of it and you go, okay, this isn't possible, you can't do this. But when you have other people who have done and got on the other side and said this is going to subside, that helps a whole lot to understand that something you might be going through right now is not everyday keto.
Yeah, it's just not normal. I don't remember exactly, when did you join as a Keto Decoded member?
I want to say it's been about a year now, but I read Tony's book, I think even 8 months before that, and talked about it, started doing some of his self-testing on my own, and that's what because in my mind, everything that diet-wise is, if anybody's getting money, they're not really trying to help me, they're trying to help themselves. And so I kind of had to prove that y'all had something beyond just, what the monetary benefit of doing this. And so once I started doing the self-testing and things started working better, the digestion issues improved some, and I could see some difference, then I joined. I got in and I started listening to all the podcasts, and that was, some more building blocks of things I could do, and I saw greater improvement. and then I think one of your challenges come along, and I said, well, I got, a few tools in my belt, let me give this a try. And when that was pretty successful, or more successful than I had ever been, I'm like, okay, I'm all in.
You will definitely get to that, because you've had some pretty amazing success during the challenges. But you had mentioned when you first joined, or even before you joined, when you first found TC's book, you were working on some digestive issues. As comfortable as you feel sharing, what are some of the symptoms that you started working on?
Right. And I'm probably more comfortable than others, because as nurses, we talk about all kind of stuff, probably more comfortable than your listeners will be. But yeah, constipation was my enemy, and keto really, it compounded it. And so, I started reading about the anabolic state and what I could do to improve that, and the supplements I could take. And I've been, worked through that set and got to a point. And then I went into the group and said, okay, I've done this and this, and this isn't working. And of course, Tony come right on and said, okay, here's the next step you need to do. And so I took the D-limonene, and that improved things a lot, and then kept working through that, and reached my next little stumbling blocks. And I was back to the room again, and got my next little group of protocols to do, work through those things, and I'm pooping like a champ. Life is good. That was worth the price of admission alone.
That is awesome. So for anyone listening that maybe isn't sure, maybe they haven't listened before, the supplement protocol that you started following is probably the 5 HCl in the middle of the meal, and then a lot of times people have to take D-limonene, because sometimes if you haven't had stomach acid for so long, the bacteria are in there and they can cause other problems like more heartburn. So a lot of times people have to go through a round or two of D-limonene before the HCl can really take effect. Did you have to take any other steps beyond that?
After that, it was mastic gum, celery juice, and oh my gosh, I forgot the thing I take at night. No, that's it. Mastic gum in the morning, then the celery juice, and I think mastic gum at night. Maybe that was it.
Intestable.
Yeah, that's it. So there you go. Intestable during the meal in the day. That was the other.
And so you said you were still, a lot of people following keto are constipated, and a lot of times that has to do with eating more protein than they're used to and not having the stomach acid to deal with it. So you said that protocol eventually helped you?
Yes. So once I was up to a certain point, things were mixed. Mixed. There was both loose and hard stooling, and so that's when I went back to the group and said, okay, I know this isn't normal, so what's the next thing? And he said that I probably had a intestinal bacteria as well, so a deeper one, and we had to do a couple of combination things to eradicate that. And after 2 weeks of taking that, 2 bottles of taking the intestiball, really towards the end of it, things were normal again, normal than I have ever remembered them. So, once a day, pretty much morning, go to the bathroom, check, we're done, and the rest of the day goes well.
That's awesome, because a lot of people think that they're just constipated and they have to deal with it and they move on with their life. And, it can really stall your weight loss if you're not getting rid of toxins like that. Yeah, people will blame other things like eating too much fat or, whatever else they want to blame. But if you're constipated, you're probably not going to lose weight, which I know I experienced for a good portion of my life. So I know that to be true.
Exactly. And I had been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome years and years ago when I was in college. And so, you look at what they say to do about that, and they, eat more fiber, drink more water. I had drank half my body weight in water. I'd eaten enough fiber to, do what anything, should have been taken care of, and it never made a difference. And even when I went to my gastroenterologist recently and told him of what I'd done, he's like, oh, it's just a coincidence. It's just a, one-time thing. You had a good day. And so, well, we just don't go back to it anymore.
Oh, wow. So the protocol that finally worked is just a coincidence?
It's just a coincidence, yeah. And it's not going to last. You're going to be right back in the misery. And we're talking now several months of happiness. So yeah, he's not willing to listen to anything new, and he's stuck in the, what the books say, and that's the end of it. So.
Yeah. I don't want to trash talk doctors by any means. You need them, and a lot of them do a lot of good, but that kind of mindset is just, it's ruining so many people's lives because they don't want to research further and see that there are other ways besides what the medical textbooks teach them.
That's right. I agree. And luckily, my other doctors I go to, cardiologists and everybody, they've listened, and they admit, I don't know if that'll work. I don't think any of these ingredients will hurt you. Let me know how it goes. It's open-mindedness about it.
So I just saw an article yesterday, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with what we're talking about. I think they were talking more about the coronavirus and all of that mess. But it was a Forbes article, and it tells you that you should not do your own research when it comes to sciencey things like that, which...
Yeah, they don't want you to.
Yeah, because if you had not done your own research, you would still be constipated and stuck and miserable and probably, still dealing with all those health issues. And that's the same thing for me. Had I not done my own research, I would be a mess. So
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it has been the greatest relief, because in my own doctor's office is the provider, my primary care provider. And so she sees what I eat, what I take, what I do. And she's like, I'm worried, Donna, I'm worried. And then the lab results come back and she goes, really? And tell me again what you're doing and what are you taking? So it has been very gratifying to see the science back up what you say, because they can't argue with that.
So what was she worried about in particular?
Cholesterol and things like that. And like my triglycerides they're almost subnormal and far as, and then I show her that how many grams of fat I'm taking a day, and she goes, that's just not possible. And I said, well, I mean, here's my January results, here's my April results, I'll do them again in October. I said, how can you argue with that?
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you have those results to show for it, because a lot of people, they just have the weight loss results and the way they feel. And then,
Mhm.
doctors, even though they lose a bunch of weight and they feel great, they have more energy than they ever have, they're losing health symptoms left and right. Doctors will say, oh, no, that's dangerous. You shouldn't do it. But when you have the numbers to back it up, that's really amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, because we had a temporary doctor in, substitute because we had one out, and he's very boisterous about studies. Well, where's your studies to back that up? I said, you know what? I quit a long time reading the studies, and when I committed, because if the people numbers aren't done on the studies, then the only person I'm going to have is me, and really, I'm the only one that matters. It doesn't matter if it worked for all those other people. It matters with my body chemistry, and I have to tweak it accordingly based on my numbers and that I'm getting on my self test. And I can't believe it. He's the most argumentative person I ever. But the last thing because he said, I'll never read another article. And I said, well, you know, if you ever decide to read something, TC Hell's book, and you can do the research yourself because you're a research person. I said, but everything I have read leads me here. And this is what I came up with. And I didn't just pick it like an Atkins off the shelf or a commercial or anything. I said, 8 months of research before I even stuck my toe really in good. And it's working. So I really don't care what the studies show.
I just re-released one of my books, which actually, the day that this airs, it's still free on Amazon, called How to Succeed on Keto Without Really Trying. And I talk about in there how if you want a book filled with scientific studies, this is not the book for you. But it
Right.
is the same process that worked for me. It obviously is working for you, and it
Mhm.
worked for a ton of other people who've lost 60, 80, 100 pounds. Like, people
Yeah.
are not only losing weight, but they're improving health symptoms they never thought they'd improve. And a lot
Right.
of it comes down to digestion. I know, like, people want to read a keto book and they want to get into like the macros, but you got to start with digestion first.
That's right. Right. Well, and that's the way I approached it because I think my very first day I read was about fatty liver and how a study had been done, with keto, starting with the was epileptics and how that worked, and then now they were trying to see if it would detox the liver, and a small study was done, but it was successful, and then that's when it led to the book and reading it and seeing that this was even a possibility, and it's amazing. It's the only thing I have ever done more than 3 months. I mean, I've been doing this a year now, and it was true that it worked a little bit, but until the digestion really fell into place, that's why the weight loss this past challenge was so much greater than even the first one because of that. Because my digestion had finally clicked.
Yeah, and we're getting to that, I promise, because you had some pretty amazing numbers. But before we get to that, so you were researching the digestion. You said you researched for about 8 months to see what would
Yeah.
be right for you. So when you first started with the Kick It Naturally protocol, did you start with low carb or did you jump right into keto macros?
Well, I had kind of been doing low carb, and when I started to try to raise the fat, that digestion was holding me back because it wouldn't digest. So, I tried to do the digestizyme, and that improved slightly, but not really enough. And I really had to do the protocol for a while before I could really digest the fats. Then I moved really to actually, and I got the Keto Mojo to see that I was actually really getting into ketosis. Because before then, the little urine sticks didn't really work. It looked like I wasn't being successful, and I got the Keto Mojo, and I'm like, wait a minute, I am in ketosis. So I could tell then I was really becoming fat adapted.
I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, because those urine sticks, they do work at the very beginning. They will start to turn pink or purple.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really are burning fat effectively, they actually stop working for a lot of people. Not for everyone, but they do stop working, because then you're no longer peeing out ketones. You're actually utilizing them in your blood. First it goes to your breath, then it goes to your blood. So a lot of people confuse that. So I'm glad you saw that the Mojo and you didn't give up, because a lot of people do.
Yes.
That's awesome. So I know when I first came across the Kick Your Fat and Nuts book, I had tried low carb so many times and it didn't work, and I was just done with it. I eventually gave in because I had, nothing else was working for me. And, I really needed to not be as overweight and have as many health problems as I did. But I think I still, in the back of my mind, had that mindset that low carb was just going to be for a little while. And then I'd probably go back to something more healthy with more carbs. Did you have that same mindset starting out, or did you realize that keto or low carb would become your permanent lifestyle?
I felt based on the responses I get when I test my sugar after things that I'm so sensitive to sugar and carbs. I felt like that some form of this was going to be the rest of my life. And after watching my granny and my mom struggle, and it's pretty much it had to become their lifestyle. I just felt this was going to be a rite of passage. I just needed to get it right.
Yeah.
And for me, because my mom can eat a little more and do okay, I feel like at least at this point, I have to be pretty strict with the carbs. I'm hoping down the road that like you say, that yours expands up to like 50 or so and you don't have any issues. I hope that that's the same for me.
Yeah, it took a while to get there. It took like way over a year to get there. And
Yeah.
I also added intermittent fasting, which helped, which we are going to talk about as well. But you had mentioned that your mom is now following this. How did the rest of your family feel about keto when you first got started?
They pretty much know that I am so meticulous at taking and watching things that I'm not going to, do anything that if it were to hurt me, I'd quit. If anything, started breaking down and things weren't working, I would stop it. They see how committed and how I've been able to do it because they've watched me diet over the years and not stick with it. And so, yeah, initially they were like, oh, this is another thing she's trying and we'll be there for her. We'll do whatever. But, they weren't confident that it was going to be something I could do. And so now, like even at Christmas parties and stuff like that, when it's all bring a dish, they bring keto options for me too.
That's awesome. My family started doing that too because a lot of them saw my success, so they started following keto, and it's nice to go to parties and have all the options there.
Yes.
And you said that some of your family, your mom is following keto. Did you say your sister is too?
My sister doesn't. It must have my dad's genes. She doesn't quite suffer from the effects of sugar like we do. But every once in a while she'll do a little 5 or 10 pound, and the keto option is something she says, that looks easier than what I'm doing. So, but yeah, no, she doesn't have to. But my mom's a little reserved with putting the money into that, a retired fixed income person. So she's all about the food and the recipes. But she doesn't have a gallbladder, so she looks at that, and she does not understand ox bile and things like that. So she did get that. But the rest of it, she's a little skittish yet. She's gonna hold back even more than me.
She's still seeing some success though, even things.
She has maintained her fatty liver was so bad that her skin had actually turned like a real dark brown and was kind of leathery. So she's come back from that, and she's reversed her levels where she used to have to take medication for diabetes. She's now to the point where she doesn't have to take it. Her sugar levels stay pretty regular. So I'd say she's having some success. But I want to push her just a little more. I think she could really do so. She'd be so much happier digestive wise if she invested a little more into that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I work with a lot of people who are a little bit older, and they see great success on keto, which is great because, like us, a lot of them struggled their whole lives, except they're a little bit older, so they've struggled even longer.
Right. Yeah. Well, the first person I bought Tony's book, I bought a book for her.
All right. So I feel like you joined Keto Decoded and you were a member for a little while, and then the challenge came up, and so you decided to join the challenge. It was last January of 2020. And during the challenges, I calculate specific macros for the challengers. So I calculated your macros, and how did that go for you once I did that?
Oh yeah, that was the biggest game changer at that point for me was doing it myself, calculating, getting kind of approximate, there was some weight loss and things were going, and it was kind of slow but steady, like the tortoise and the hare kind of thing. I was the tortoise, but when you dialed in those for me, it's like leaps and bounds. I was just like, it was that magic happened, things were falling off like you see in the commercials. Yeah, it just magically fell off. And I was like, wow, I get to be in that club.
Awesome. So what was the difference? Were you eating like less carbs or more fat or?
I had too much protein. That was one thing. Fat was pretty close and the carbs were a little high. Well, no, wait a minute. Carbs were too low. I was trying to do lower than that. And it's like I stalled out. Like my body's like, no, it's not working. So the protein, I think, was the biggest thing. I was too much. Because that was turning into the rest of it was turning into sugar. And so it just wasn't working, but yeah.
So do you feel like when you had your macros calculated and it was working for you, were you eating more food or less food than you had all those years that you dieted?
Right. And I believe in I don't believe in the less calories is going to, make things better. But I was just trying to stick to the carb count, and it for some reason, it was low. I was eating more calories when you dialed it in.
You're eating, and I find that's the case. Like a lot of people, they spend so long dieting on and off, and they become accustomed to eating low calories, and that can actually stall a lot of people. I know we talk about that on a lot here. But we have to talk about it a lot because there's some people in the keto community that will tell you to eat like 1,000, 1,100 calories, and I don't know how people do it.
No, and I find, like if I'm fasting, I generally go kind of up even further. I eat a little, more fat for satiation and stuff like that. And people especially at work are like, you just spent 2 days not really eating anything. Why would you do that? You're ruining what you did. And I'm like, no, I'm stoking the fire. Boom, 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 knock it in their head.
That is exactly it, stoking the fire, because when you fasting is great and, it heals your hormones, but you need to balance it with feasting. And if you're still starving your body during a feasting time, you're actually going the wrong way. You actually could be doing more damage because your body thinks that you're in a famine and it will hold on to your stored fat if you are not eating enough. Of course, you should never stuff food in because that will also cause damage. But if you're eating according to feeling satiated and just feeling good, that's exactly what you need to do.
Right.
As much fun as this episode has been so far, we still talk for quite a while, and we haven't even gotten into the huge success Donna had as a 2-time keto challenger. She goes on to tell us all about her 50-pound total weight loss success story so far since joining Keto Decoded, along with other non-scale victories, including improving some pretty major digestive malfunctions she dealt with for years. So you do not want to miss next week's episode 69, when we get to all of this and more. And speaking of her 50-pound weight loss success story, in about a year's time, Donna has been a member of Keto Decoded for that long, and that's what it took for her finally to start getting success with keto. If you are in the same position and you're not sure what's going on, you can join us as a member of Keto Decoded. You can check that out right now at eatingfatisthenewskinny.com/KD membership. We offer monthly activities to help keep our members on track each and every month. Plus, you will have a front row seat to the new keto challenge when it happens in October. And if you join now, you will have access to all of the courses we offer, including Keto Decoded, Fasting Decoded, and the Fat Loss course, which is where I got started with my 100-pound weight loss journey. But you can only get that now because once we revamp our course, the price of the Keto Decoded course alone will be more than a yearly membership of Keto Decoded. So if you are thinking about joining, you'll want to do that now. And again, you can go to eatingfatisthenewskinny.com/KD membership. Okay, I will see you back here with Donna again next week to learn even more about all of the amazing success she's having now that she learned how to keto the right way.
Whether you're brand new to keto or just looking to move past roadblocks, Join us for our next Troubleshooting Keto Master Workshop. Go to chatthefat.com/workshop to find upcoming dates and register for this totally free event. You just might find your missing piece of the puzzle. Until then, we'll see you next week on Chat the Fat.